Hello everyone! I'm right on time. By about 7 minutes off. That's okay. Alright, here we go. So, just a couple of glitches obviously here. I'm doing this for the first time, but I'd like to welcome you to the stream. This is the first episode of Brush Jockey Studios. So essentially the idea around Brush Jockey Studios is going to be that we're going to get together on Sunday afternoons. I've always found it a challenge to, get the hobby time in. Oftentimes I'm doing it in the evenings while watching television with my family. But I've heard in the community that it's hard to find the time, and a lot of people end up doing it on Sunday afternoons while they're doing their laundry after they've kind of got everything done for the week. So I wanted to take this opportunity to chime in and touch base with you guys to go through some of the things that I like doing, show you some tips and tricks on painting. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm OJ Andrews. I've been painting for about 37 years, and the idea around my stream here is to be able to share that knowledge, that wealth of knowledge. So yes, 37 years ago I started painting. I was 5 years old, so that makes me 42. My mom actually owned a ceramic shop, and that's essentially where I started. I started painting, ceramics, little birds and animals. I really liked painting teddy bears, and specifically cardinals and blue jays. Did a couple of things. I was 7 years old when I used my first airbrush. Yes, 7 years old. It was a Badger siphon feed. I don't even remember the model of it, but what it was is my mom had a big ceramic vase, and I just started choosing colors that I wanted to put on it, and I was kind of like just clouding it on, just different things. So it made it look like a big nebula, which was super cool. My mom ended up selling it, which is great for her. But I was thinking about it not long ago, and I was thinking, damn, that would have been really cool to have kept around. But no, anyways. With all of those years of painting in ceramics, it's always been with acrylic paints. So probably around, I'd like to say 1994 or 1995, I started painting tabletop war miniatures. Yeah, that's where I started into the hobby, and that's exactly why I started, was the actual hobby part of it. A lot of what I do is based on, and a lot of my choices that I make in the hobby is based on what the actual model looks like. I started complete armies because of one model. So, for instance, I played War Machine and Hordes a few years back, and I was not interested in the game itself, but I found what was his name? His name is escaping me. The Lich Lord that he has there, his second version of him. For those of you who are following, I know Tyrone is. What was his name? Asphyxius? Asphyxius, yeah. Lich Lord Asphyxius. Yeah, thanks, Tyrone. But like that model itself, and I have it somewhere around here. It's been through the ringers. I sold it to a friend. His entire army got stolen except for this one model, and it's like in pieces somewhere. But I started painting that. I started playing War Machine and Hordes because of that one model. And lore comes a far third in my rankings when it comes to my priorities in games. I love the models themselves, and then the gameplay, and then finally the lore. So if you ask me about the lore of a number of different things, you'll probably you probably get a vague answer, because I know vague things. You know, I know there's an emperor in the realm of 40k. I know that chaos is about, and they polluted the souls of innocence, or something like that. So the idea around the channel itself, just to kind of give you all a heads up, is every so often I'm going to probably have some friends of mine who've tried to really have me dive into the lore of different games, and chat about that lore. So for instance, I think next week I have scheduled Keith, a buddy of mine, to come on to the channel and chat about these bad boys, the Gene Stealer cults. So we're gonna be painting these guys today, but I'm just gonna have different friends on to be able to chat with me while we're painting. And getting back to my original purpose of the stream, just a hobby together. You know, while we're doing this, I'm happy to just have fun, hobby. As I see different comments or suggestions, or even comments after I've posted the videos and whatnot, I'll follow up with different tips and techniques through those hobbies. So if you're looking for object source lighting with an airbrush, or object source lighting without an airbrush, today I'm going to kind of cover off my process that I use for commission painting. I'll show you all a commission that I've started working on, and kind of give you tips and techniques on doing a larger scale army in a shorter time period. This specific commission needs to be done in 2 weeks, and there's a lot of models in it. So I want to show you some tips and techniques that I'm going to be using to get that done. And hopefully the models will represent something that's pretty decent. And it's these bad boys right here, the Gene Stealer cult. So let's take a look. I'm going to switch over to our painting focus to see what we're going to work on today, and I'll show you essentially the biggest part of it is the actual these guys over here. So this is part of the commission itself. All right, a lot of the Gene Stealer cults, and they're in processing right now. So I just got the the last bits of those models this morning. So my process is going to be to organize them specifically in a fashion that makes sense in what I'm looking at. So for instance, here's two aberrants here. So what I do is I categorize them, or essentially take a look at them with all of the same different kind of objects here. So the top parts of these bodies are different because they're optional, but the bottoms of these guys, the legs, all have these little cloaks on, little skirts or dresses. And I just want to make sure that, I guess you guys can hear me, because Tyrone responded back with a 6, yes. But all of the little grenades are in the same place, and all the little icons are in the same place. So when I'm going through large numbers of models like this, so I'm going to be going through 20, 40, 60, 80, 90 of those models. With those 90 models, I want to be as efficient as possible. So when I'm laying down my paint, I lay down the same color for each model. So I'll pick up each of those guys with those skirts and put down the orange on those skirts. And I just rinse and repeat for all of those models. Now, the biggest thing that I struggle with is burnout after painting 10. Just wanted to comment on that, actually. The thing that I do is I make small gains in that. So after 10 models, or after 5 models of one color, I move on to something else that's more rewarding for me, and more quickly giving me an immediate thing. So specifically, I use characters as that tool, and I'm going to be putting some base colors on these guys. or I'll just jump into a project of my own that I'm working on. So, for instance, I had some bust models from Lumbruxia. There was a Kickstarter that had been done, so I have a Joan of Arc readily available for me to jump into if I'm feeling burnt out, right? Or if I'm looking at different models. I have a conversion of a corn lord on a juggernaut here. Like these are just things that I've started and I've gone to when I feel that burnout. So yeah, taking those strides and making sure that you take a couple of minutes or even 20 minutes, half an hour. Odds and sods created a Twitch just for this. Awesome. Thanks odds and sods. I'm guessing this is probably Mr. Street Lamp Lamoose who's signed in. Just so I know that some people are watching LVO today. What are you doing, OJ? Starting your stream on LVO Finals Day. Well, the idea is we're here having fun, doing some hobbying. A lot of people are, streaming or watching both. In this case here, Mr. Street Lamp Lamoose is doing that, I know. So thank you for joining me. So yeah, let's take a look at what we're going to be painting today and kind of go through that. So this guy here, if I'm not mistaken, he's what's called a Nexos. Some friends have called him DJ Supreme with the big turntable in the front. For those of you who don't know, that's actually a topographical view of Warhammer Citadel HQ in the UK, Warhammer World, which is kind of cool. Then we have a locust, and we're gonna put this guy down some paint. The owner of this commission wants this guy to have a nice regal purple view, so you can have mostly purple on his robes, which will be nice. Color scheme is purple and orange. Nice complementing colors, which are super cool. Then we have a Sanctus that we're going to take a look at and start getting some paint on today as well. This is a sniper with a familiar out the back. Super cool. So the idea around this is I'm going to have a purple skin color theme, so very light purple, and orange bits of cloth. All of the armor is going to be like a olive drab, so we're going to take a look and find those details and pull those off. This is a Jackal Alpha, the character for the Jackals and the riders. 4 really great models that just released yesterday. So yeah, pretty stoked about getting some paint on these guys. So as a question to everyone, Twitch guy 1701, welcome to the stream. Put that model a bit to your right, getting some great shots of your knuckles. All right, so to my right, this guy right here. Gotcha. Thanks for that. I'm actually going to be zooming in and making sure that we're just getting the model here itself. So thanks for that tip, Twitch guy 1701. There's a couple of events going on today. Bones Con in the UK, Captain Con in the LVO. Wow. So what are the Bones Con and Captain Con events, Ronlor? I'm just curious. I know, my old knuckles, 42 years of them. So I'm going to do my best here to get this going. So just to give you a sense of my setup and how I work, I use a wet palette. So I've got my nice clean wet palette. Doesn't look clean, that's just my parchment paper is nice and wet. As I touch it, or as everything comes in, you can see that the water is still there. I always use 2 pots of water. The reason being is I don't like my metallics getting mixed in with my regular colors. So I'll have one for metallics, one for others. big old glass of water right beside. Yes, I have washed my brush in there. And then I have my my paints down over here. So we're gonna take a look at those. I know, shaky model syndrome, shaky camera. All right. So let's take a look at what I use to get started on these guys here. So we'll get these knuckles. All right. So when doing this, I when painting anything, I like you know, dressing my models just like I would myself. I put on my underwear before I put on my pants, and I have my skin on all the time. So that's the first thing that's always on my list. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some skin tones on these guys so that we can get this going. Now, as I mentioned, we're gonna go with a skin tone, but it's a purple skin tone. So my idea that I've had around this is to use one of the Citadel base color paints, and I'm just gonna find it here. Essentially, it's very light purple in the color scheme, or even a light blue. Not Ultra One gray, but actually have the paint that I'm thinking of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an alternative. I'm actually going to use like a skin color with a wash then on it to get that purple color. So I'm going to go with a base color, Ironarc Skin. This is the color that I'm going to use. All right. Just like Duncan will say, thin your paints. So essentially what I like doing is I like getting my brush. Now I use a fairly large brush to get started. It's nice to be able to make broad strokes because this particular color here doesn't need to have any details. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay down my colors here. Both are War Machine events. Awesome. Anybody we know from Sudbury here, Ron Lord, that went down to those? And whereabouts are they located, if you don't mind me asking? So you'll notice that I've thinned my paint so much that it's not completely covering. You can see the actual green still through that, and this is probably the biggest suggestion that I have for anybody painting is be patient with that. The reason being is you don't want to lay down a thin layer of paint. And in this case here, it's rather thin with this color. But the idea is let it dry and put another thin layer on. I know that a lot of people are anxious to see the results of the actual paint job or the actual paint going on. And when you're not seeing it, your immediate reaction is to, oh, I got to put more paint on there. Let it dry, because what happens is it actually will lift up some of that paint if it's not completely dried on there, and you'll get a better finish if you just be patient and put those colors on in nice thin coats. And that's why Duncan always says, you know, 2 thin coats, multiple thin coats, thin your paint. It's because it really does provide a better finish at the end, right? Nice opaque color at the end after multiple coats, rather than, you know, having yourself do it for, you know, big clumpy kind of insertions. All right. So there's the Nexos. Now we're gonna do the Locos. All right. And I typically, when I'm doing painting in batch models like this, I'll do them in small batches, 5 to 10 at a time, and then I'll go back over those 5. So, for instance, if I had 5 of these alkylates, I would I will put down the color of the skin real quick on 5 of them, and then after I've done the 5, I would go back to that first one, and I'd be able to put my second coat on. So that's essentially where we're at with this here. We're not putting large guys, and don't be afraid to. As you see, I've covered up this guy's like face mask, and I kind of got some on his robes here. That's okay, like because this is the first layer, it's the skin, right? We're going to be placing the other objects or placing the other layers on afterwards. So after we have this done, we're going to be able to go ahead back to the other colors and put them on and clean up those areas. Okay. So let's go ahead and put on this guy here. Okay, so this guy is a Sanctus, right? Now I haven't had a chance to look cleanly through the codex on this, but you know, I've been told that it's pretty neat. There's some really powerful stratagems. The idea around a lot of the army is a synergy army, which is super cool. I just finished playing, you know, my last couple of games with my Ynnari, and my Ynnari really depend on characters to synergize with the entire army. You know, so with that being said, you know, modifiers and buffs and elements like that really do well, and it's you know, it's really shown over the past year or so, because Ynnari's done so well over that time frame. So what's nice about this particular color here is it's nice and light. And I typically will use a nice light skin color like this, or even a white, or almost even like the blue tone. I forget what the actual paint name is called, and it's not here with me today, so I'm not super happy with that. But yeah, it's just a matter of getting them on, putting it on there. One of your podcast mates is doing well at the Captain Con. Cool. When did you start doing your podcast, Ronmar? I didn't realize that you did, and I apologize if you had told me about it and I didn't jump on. I understand. You have to kind of be patient with me with other games like that, because you know I no longer play the War Machine Hordes games, but. This one's a nice easy one, just the head. And it's important also to take a look back down in here, right? Because you notice that there's actually an area down there that it's just like almost like a collar for the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I'm going to pause here. I'm not gonna put my second layer of skin tone on this one. I'm going to go into that collar and get that washed in there first. Now, because the camo green is still already in there, I'm just going to wash it so that I have the wash color that I wanted in there, and then that way there I'll be able to refinish and rebuild up that skin. The only reason I'm doing that is because it's going to be tough for me to get my brush in there just to get those rings of that collar after I've done that skin. So it's just you know, a kind of a tip to make sure that happens there. And yes, I'm a brush licker, a brush jockey, brush licker. It's kind of neat, the name. I'm probably thinking, okay, who's so pretentious that he calls himself a brush jockey? Well, brush jockey is a jockey is a person who rides a horse or jockeys something, you know, makes it do what you want it to do. you bend your horse to the wheel as a jockey. You know, you whip it down down the lanes so that you try and win a race. And it's not a race for me, but you know, I've often had challenges with friends. You know, doing a painting challenge where we have a large number of models to do in a short period of time, and you know, whether or not we have it done at that certain time, we lose something. I think the biggest thing I ended up losing was a couple of models that I had donated. But our challenge is that if we don't have it done at that certain time, to a certain level, we lose that army, or we lose that you know, that stake that we put up. I'll post some old videos that I had as painting challenges. I had entire armies of Tau models and entire armies of Eldar and elements that I just needed to have done. And I'll probably bring that to the stream itself as well, to keep me more accountable for things. But you know, things like this, where I'm painting a commission for someone and I haven't been fully paid for it, and if there's an expected deadline for that, what I'll do is you know, I'll give the guy a 50% discount if I don't end up having it for a certain time frame. That's not actually what's going to happen on this one, Street Lamp Lamousse. But you know, the idea is I want you to be able to see me kind of work through my process in that. So let's get some more paint on these guys. These guys probably have their skin nice and dry now. So here we go. So we see that it's still fairly transparent. So now with my second go through, again watering my paint down, I'm gonna go through here, and here we go. Bring this in. And sometimes if you're doing a light color like this, you might even need to do a third color, third layer of paint, right? So Ron Lore, you're in with me here today. You're doing some modeling. What are you working on? Also, with anybody else, Street Lamp, I know that you're probably watching the LVO today. But Twitch guy, if you're on the stream taking a look, are you hobbying? Are you a gamer? Odds and Sods is who I'm referring to. Street Lamp. I'm guessing that's who you are, right? I might be totally wrong. Now I'm just I'm automatically assuming who's joined because, you know, we're in a small community up here in Northern Ontario, Sudbury specifically. And, you know, we essentially all know each other here. And I know of a few people who said they were going to be signing on. And I'm guessing that they're probably my only stream watchers right now. So this is giving me a nice color, base color to be able to put my wash on. So yes, it's still a little bit transparent, not as translucent as I wanted it to be. Or sorry, not as opaque as I wanted it to be. But essentially it's getting me that color that I want it to be at, to be able to put that down. Twitch guy 1701 cranking it, awesome. Scourges, so you're a good old Drukhari player. Are you from town here, Twitch guy 1701? Don't want to call you out. I think I know who you might be if you are in town, but because you know we have a small community and only a few people who play Drukhari, which is actually the purple ones. Yes, okay, I know who you are. Twitch guy 1701. Awesome. That's cool. Barry Bash cranking out those Scourges. Those are beautiful models. I think that they're probably one of my favorite Drukhari models. Have never painted one, but as I mentioned, I was playing Ynnari, and I've actually sold my army. I know, so for those of you who are local and have seen me play, I've been a trustworthy Ynnari Craft Worlds Azeryani player since the Codex dropped, but I was getting tired of being considered that guy. That guy is the guy who let me get some white balance in here. That guy is the guy who plays the Ynnari and has the shining spears that charge up and charge the first turn and do relatively well, but wanted a little bit different change of pace. So I've actually picked up 2 armies. I'm building my Drukhari. So here's some projects that I've been working on. Here's a little bit of a conversion, kind of a kit bash for my Archon, for my my Cabal of the Black Heart. Another conversion that I had done a while back was from the Triumvirate. It was my second Archon. I think he's looking pretty good. So I think that's the scheme I'm going to be going with, is like an ivory kind of tone throughout all of my Drukhari lists. So you'll probably see that on the stream as we go through. I know, I sold my Ynnari. I'm going to the dark side. Thanks. So I've got my couple of Talos builds. These guys here. Then I have, when I started actually playing Ynnari, soup was a big thing, right? So I would have all of my Trueborns and my Raiders all together. So I have my battalion of Kabbalite warriors already. I have my 3 Ravagers, which is cool. So I'm just working on my Prophets of Flesh stuff. So that's that. Have my first Homunculus, just the basic. Put them together. There he is. And then if I'm doing anything with them, I'll probably use Urian Rackhart as the second Homunculus in that detachment. And I've been playing around with going to Wind Riders. So those of you who have done any kind of following on the LVO, one of the armies is actually a pretty crazy Ynnari list. So he's running a Farseer Skyrunner, a Warlock Skyrunner, along with Yvraine, 2 9-man units of Windrunners with star cannons in them. So rather than the Shuriken catapults. And then what else does he have? So he's got a 20-man Guardian unit, 2 8-man Ranger units for his troops on there. Then he's got 2 Airwing detachments. One of them with 3 Razorwing jet fighters. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the Dark Lances that he has with it. I might be wrong. 3 of the Exarch fighter pilots from Ynnari, or from Craft Worlds, sorry, and a Hemlock Wraith fighter. So 7 flyers and the Wind Riders, and I can only assume with those Wind Riders, he's been able to. And if you haven't taken a look at the Vigilus campaign, if you have a character that is a Wind Rider, you can spend a command point to make all of your Wind Rider units, so any of your Farseers, Vipers, Wind Runners, a Wind Rider host, and it gives access to two stratagems. And one of those stratagems is to have your unit shoot again. So imagine that if those Wind Runners are Ynnari Wind Runners. So you pop up, you do your Warriors of the Raging Wind, making them be able to advance and shoot. But if they're running star cannons, it's actually heavy, so they won't be able to shoot, but they move their 16 inches. 36-inch range on those star cannons, so in the psychic phase, you have rain makes them pop, right? I kicked your ass, loved my display. Thanks, odds and sods. Odds and sods. Are you who I think you are? Are you Street Lamp Lamoose? Or are you another person that I'm looking at? If you don't mind reminding me who I kicked your ass with, like who I was facing. Not necessarily your name, but obviously, but the army itself would be cool. But yeah, so again, back to my little story. Think about that Windrunner now. Shooting in the shooting phase or in the psychic phase, using a stratagem in that phase to have them shoot again because they just shot like it was the shooting phase. And then in the shooting phase, they get to shoot and use that stratagem again. So if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong about the shooting again with the stratagem in the psychic phase, but you're having your guys shoot 3 times without having your without having things gone. So remember the whole Dark Reaper fiasco of have them shoot twice in a turn, sometimes 3 if you use Forewarned. Okay, well now you have your Farseer Skyrunner 6 inches from those guys, 36-inch range. They're firing at almost anything as well. So these guys can probably fire 4 times in a round. So thinking about that's a different change in metas. Shiny Spears come right out, and those 2 big units or even 3 big units of Windrunners with long range weaponry like that. That's that's pretty sharp. But anyways, back to my original point. I sold my Ynnari because I just wanted to change something up. So I started building my Drukhari, and I also actually picked up an Orc army, going to the Horde side, going to play a Horde army, going to play 90 boys and couple of bosses with some weird boys and Ludas. Try them out. I like how the army just controls the board. Like you put them on and it's like their entire deployment zone is packed with that unit, right? So you need to be surgical in removing them and in fighting against them, but the overwhelming firepower and just sheer volume of number of models that come into that, it's unreal. No, you're not Clark. Oh, okay. Thanks, Odds and Sods. Thanks for PMing me. Here, I'm gonna take a quick peek over there just to see who you are, so I get a reminder. There we go. No one's seeing what I'm seeing on my screen, right? It's good. But yeah. So, I did well at the TBMC ITC GT, recently rebranded as the Basement Open. Came in 2nd overall, which was super cool. I lost 1 game that weekend, and yeah, I was really kind of just stoked to do so well with them. Played them for almost another year. I did well at different team events, and had some bad losses against Austin. Austin, if you're watching, you know that bad loss that I had, and just decided that I wanted to change the pace. I still have a number of different Azeryani models though, so I still have 3 units of 5 Swooping Hawks, 3 units of 5 Banshees. I still have a bunch of Wraithguard. I still have my Titans. I still have one of my Wraith Knights as well. Awesome. Thanks, Odds and Sods, for the follow. Much appreciated. But yeah, I still gonna rebuild my army and have a different kind of feel to it. try not to overplay that Yunari card. Yvrain is just so easy to put in at 135 points to make things, so much more efficient. But I want to start playing a little bit differently to make sure that I'm not playing because the army is good. I'm playing because I can actually play well. So that's my long story now completed. All right, so here we go. Going on to my wash. I'm gonna start with a Druchii Violet on this skin. The Druchii Violet will give a nice light kind of tone to it. So here we go. DJ Meister here. So we'll kind of wash this in. Now I like being liberal with skin washes. Reason being is I want that color to be captured throughout that whole skin area. Now I'm not so liberal that everything looks purple, but you can see as I'm kind of putting it in, I'm trying to make sure that all of the recesses get that purple tone, but it's just a light kind of wash over that purple area there. And there we go. So, Twitch guy is working on some scourges. Some Hordes models is Ron Lore is going to be working on. Good stuff. Odds and sods, what are you working on today? If you're working on anything, hopefully this is giving you some. All right, there we go. So we can see where the sprue is connected. So essentially, gonna get that on there, and you see that I want to make sure that we get right into the colors and right into the recesses of that. Okay, and we just continue again. Like I said, recycle, refinish, and you have to wait. You have to really wait. Make sure that you wait for wash to dry. You can't go back because it really makes life really horrible for you. Now this guy here, he's got he's got some equipment on his face. So, got to pay attention to that. But we're gonna take care of that again afterwards. So I'm not worried at all with my paint and my washes getting onto those pieces. Reason being is I'm working with thin coats, right? As our friend Duncan always says, use 2 thin coats or multiple thin coats. And the idea around that is because it doesn't block or it doesn't remove any of the details of that. Put a dot on the white pad to tell you when it's centered, just up and right from that yellow smear. Okay, yeah, and like right here, I guess. See? Thank you. I know. There we go. Is that better? Hopefully everybody. Yeah, there we go. Twitch guy. Thanks, Twitch guy. All right, there we go. So I like working. I like working from the lid of my wash. I don't necessarily have to put the wash onto my wet palette. Sometimes I will. So I'll show you what I do. So I essentially put the wash on my wet palette, but get most of the wash out. And that would be used when I'm just like giving a tint to something. So see, I'm just kind of putting that on very thinly, but I'm just putting that and giving it a tint. That's not my intent for this guy. I'm putting it on nice and liberal to get those colors down in there nice and deep in those recesses. I know. Sorry. First time streaming. Getting this nice and centered in there. So there we go. Some nice colors. Nice deep recesses. Okay. Leviathan and a second Dreadnought conversion that you're working on. Alright. Now that my giant table is done. Ah, I know who you are. Giant table. Yeah, I guess you've been working on that for a while, eh? I love the thematics of that table. So for those of you who are watching, who's ever participated in one of the Basement Collective's events, this is a table with a little bit of controversy behind it, I guess. And that controversy is, the little line of sight blocking element in the center of that table takes up the whole table. So it's essentially a citadel with like a flight deck and some of the greatest things that I've seen on a table that was done by someone that I know. So kudos to you, man. That was a superb project, and I'm happy that you're done it. Have you shared like images or like a 360 walk around of it? I know that you posted images a little while back, but like, have you done anything like with as a formality, kind of saying this is done now? So again, with this guy here, there's gear on the head with the alpha, but there we go. So now you can kind of see that my wash on that first guy is still wet, and I'm not going to touch that again until it's dry. So the idea around this here is making sure that stays like that. So I'm going to probably dry brush or just kind of highlight some of those areas with a little bit more of that Iron Arc skin. But I'm going to mix in a little bit of my Druchii Violet to give the skin tone a little bit of purple, to give it that highlight. And that's where that's going to go. All right, so with that said, I'm going to start taking a look at a different area of a different model then. So this guy here, while the head's drying, I'm going to start doing some of the silver around the on the bike because it's at the bottom of it. I use a great starting color for most and all of my metals, and that's my Vallejo acrylic metal color. Now these guys here are around $8 to $10. You can get them online. I typically will pick mine up when I'm out of town. There are oftentimes little deals that I've found in buying things in bulk, or multiple things of it. But the color of this guy here is superb. It's all of the metallics in this line are the pigments in them are so great. If you haven't already started using them or something similar, I highly recommend that you do. There we go. So nice and centered. So you'll see the coverage of this. This is super thin right now, but look at that coverage. Like, I'm not seeing anything transparent about that at all. It's coming in nice and just getting on there. So Twitch guy 1701, you said that you're working on your scourges. Are those the last models that you need to finish for Berry Bash? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be participating in the Berry Bash this year. I have a family. and many of the people on the stream I know are watching do as well. And you're in the same boat where you need to make a decision on what tournaments you're going to participate in and what tournaments you're not. It's not that it's taxing on a family, but it's just that an entire weekend taken away from your family and and things that they might want to do with you is a little bit different. When I posted and announced that I was potentially going to be putting together either a stream or videos on YouTube, one of the questions that the local gaming store owner asked was, how do you play Warhammer and stay married? Well, it's in moderation, it's in balance, and as Twitch guy and other people that I know, Davis and others, as you're making those considerations to potentially go to an event out of town, one, it's the cost. If you're not, if you don't have a really great job, it's the cost of the event itself and cost of a hotel room and the cost of food as well. But more so is being away for an entire weekend from your family. It's can be taxing, definitely. Things that are gray. Yes, yeah. The did they post the did they post the rubric? One event a quarter. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. Missing Saturday sucks. Missing both days is really tough. 100%, man. I agree. So my rule of thumb is 2 out of town events a year. In-town events sometimes will I'll be able to participate in. Still missing out on those days during the day, but I make sure that that event day is the event day itself, so I don't spend any extra time with it, and I lose out in the camaraderie and the community building part of the hobby when I do that. But I'm at least at home with my family at that time and enjoying that. So this guy is coming along nicely with that color. Now, here, this is another tip, right? Is I was waiting for things to dry on my model, on this model here, on my other models actually, and then just taking a quick peek at that model over there now. I took a little bit of time, worked on something else here, and now that I'm almost done this color for just the bike, that model that I started with is almost ready to go, so I'll be able to jump back onto that. All right. So I'll leave it like that. Have the bike pretty much done. That's just a little bit of like a sleeping bag or something. Sleeping roll. There we go. The bike is done. All right, now I'm because that was a metallic, I'm using my other water pot. It's very important. I really find that's a key element, because otherwise those little shiny particles. There's my knuckles again. Shroom Duck, you finally came in. How you doing, Shroom Duck? Are you able to get to both streams? All right. I had to get furnace filters. Oh. Look at you adulting. All right, so I've done the washes now on these guys here. So I'm going to come in and do a little bit of a highlight on that skin now. So I'm going to change from my number 2 brush. I'm going to go down to, actually, I'm probably going to go right down to a number 0 brush on this guy here. So here we go. Go 0. I really like using the Klinsky Sable brushes. So whether it's a Series 7 from Winsor & Newton, it's this guy here, miniature series, or just a Vallejo Klinsky Sable one. I really find that the shape of the brush actually is super is kept really great. Now these Klinsky Sable miniature Winsor & Newton brushes, a lot of people I've seen on posts and forums say, how long does your brushes last? And with the right care, they can last for years. Like this brush here specifically, I've had for about 12 years now. And you know, with the right care, making sure that you're cleaning them properly, you know, using your paper towel every once in a while, going in and actually cleaning out the brush where the paint may have gotten really close to the ferrule there. It's really important for it to happen. Here to make sure you don't mess up my models. Yeah, I know. They're doing well. Look at nice and theme. I don't perform well, and you know, I'm really glad that you weren't here for my comment a little earlier about you know, painting challenges and whatnot. So I'm just not gonna repeat myself on that. But isn't your furnace new? Why do you need to do that? You haven't even been in there like 3 months. Ah, gotcha. All right, so to highlight this guys here now. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that Iron Rack. I was calling it Iron Rack skin, and I'm going to mix a little bit of the Drucci Violet in with it. Had a really great tip here, Shroom Duck, from Mr. Twitch Guy. Putting a little point where my centerpiece is. So there we go. All right, so because I have my wet palette, you know, my base color is already on there, and I can actually mix it in with my stuff here. So let me show you what this is looking like here. So I have my wet palette. So all I'm doing is taking a little bit of that Drucci Violet and bringing it in, getting that nice kind of purple color on my color theme. Now the idea around this is I don't want my brush overloaded, so I'm essentially almost bringing it all off, right? And then once it's off, and get back into the color, these guys here, I'm just gonna come in and put that right on the highlights here. Okay, giving it a nice highlighted color like that. So the same thing goes with these guys here. Just finding the edge areas of where this goes. I kind of just using the edge of my brush as I'm kind of finding what those areas are. You know, sometimes it's really easy to pick out, like you can see the nose and the ridge of the nose here is really nice and easy to pick out, but down here on the cheek, I'm just kind of almost doing like an edge highlight just to get those edges down there. And then on the top part of the head here, just gonna get a little bit more on here because I want this to be all the same color. I want them to have a little mosquito landing pad up there. Get the edge highlighting right across the edge of the face here, down on the chin, this cheekbone. recenter my model. Because I don't want that. So the person who put these together cleaned off the top of the head, but it looks like it was flattened, which is okay, but you don't want it to be noticeable. So I'm just gonna kind of blend that all in there so that it's a nice single color up here. And I'll put another highlight up there, and then a little bit here. So there we go, nice purple face. Okay. Now at this point here, this is where I'm gonna probably want to get my eyes done as well, because I don't want to get it all detailed and kind of finish that up. So what I'll do is I'll start with an ivory. So I'm going back to that Drucci or Iron Rack skin. So for these of you who are seeing, now again, it's okay to blender this, okay? The idea around this is you want to get the color in where you need it, and then clean up afterwards. And a lot of people say, well, why do you do your eyes after you've done the wash of the skin? Well, it's easier for me to see it, and it's easier for me to see where that recess and the actual shading around the eyes goes. So then with this here, I'm going to go ahead and put my pupil in, right, which will be probably like a darker color or a blue or something like that. And then from there, I'll start cleaning up around the edge, and I can clean up with the wash, really nice and thin, and get go do layers on it to clean that up. And we'll finish up this. Finish up these highlights on this hand here before I move on. So while we're sitting here with everyone, anybody have any tips and tricks that they use when they're painting to make life easier, to keep yourself motivated, to keep on the project? All right, so I'm going to go a little bit of a larger brush for now. I want to kind of blend that top piece a little bit better. Alright, now back into this. I'm going to let that dry really well in those eyes, and I'm going to go on to, other models. I'm actually going to switch over to the Vallejo number zeros. It's a little bit longer in the bristles. I prefer that. This bad boy here. Some of you might be hearing whimpering in the background. It's my dog. In his crate, not enjoying it right now. that's a great tip, Ronlor. It's so Ronlor says that for those of you who are over on YouTube, Ronlor says that when he enters tournament that requires a fully painted army, he includes in his lists models that are not painted yet to force them to get painting. That's actually a really super great strategy to get things done. Actually, you know what? I think for any of the local tournaments that we do here, that might be a great idea for me to do as well. So rather than play competitively with some of the local players who don't necessarily always want to play competitively, just start building armies that are fairly fluffy. And like I say, I don't want to be that guy playing the games locally, and even in like events and tournaments. Want them to have fun. Want everyone to have fun, right? What about you, odds and sods? Tips that you use to make life well in painting. I know that you've been working on that table for the most part, but get a sense from you how you do painting. Do you do anything specifically, like, or you just kind of go at it with with any strategy, or? Now, I'm taking a lot of care with these particular models because these are the characters, right? You want your characters to stand out, and you want your characters to have a really nice, look and feel in the army. When I start doing this kind of method with the the troops on here, I'm not going to skimp out and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to put the base coat and then the wash and then I'm done. What I'll typically do is I'll do a light dry brush on those models instead. So in this case here, I'm specifically picking out the details of the characters, like the cheekbones and the chin and, elements like that. Whereas with troops and like kind of the horde of models that are going to be on the board in this case, I'll kind of take a little bit of a different strategy around doing that in a different and more efficient way. I use a plate gloss. Yeah, so like a plate that you use, for sure. A ceramic plate with a finish on top. That's okay. A lot of things depend on what that does. So you'll probably notice, anybody who doesn't use a wet palette probably notices that your paint dries a little bit more frequently. And you really notice a difference if you start ever using a wet palette. So here, as I mentioned, Clark, here's my wet palette essentially. The wet palette itself, because the water comes through the parchment paper, like this paint here has been here since I started painting today, which is like an hour and 15 minutes ago now. So, and what's really nice is when you put your lid on this, especially when I'm working on a project, a big project that has consistency, like the Gene Stealer color. So I'm going to have this same color used over and over and over again. So when I put a lid on, I can come back to this in 2 or 3 days, and this paint will still be wet and ready for me to use. Just need to put in maybe a dab of water or pull of water over from over here, and make my paint great again. Here we are, Brush Jockey, making paint great again. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with using a plate like that for your palette at all. It's really a matter of preference and what you want to use. You know, if you're doing one model at a time, yeah, that'll probably work. You don't need to worry about you know, about your paint drying so much. You're not going into, like, you know, deep numbers of models. So. All right, here we go. Get the knuckles. Because the Twitch guy really likes my knuckles. So my plan, actually, the owner of these models here, Clark, he gave me a really great idea to help myself in doing this, and I hope that you guys are having fun doing this. I'm like, I think I'm actually gonna start. I think I'm gonna start. If I'm not mistaken, I have the capacity through my OBS stream to have elements that other people can put in. So like videos or images, or, you know, connect to something. I'm really feeling that I want to look at what you're doing. I want to see what you guys are doing and kind of congratulate you on the wins that you're making today. You guys are doing some hobbying, and, you know, that alone is a challenge in itself, as I mentioned sometimes. But you know, I wouldn't mind seeing some of that stuff. So if you can, you know, post on. Do I have it? I think I have open posts available on my Facebook page, Brush Jockey Studios. Be happy to see that stuff for now, like there. But I'm going to try and build in the capacity to be able to share your stuff on here live with us too, so that we can share it with the world, right? I like the idea that Twitch is this platform that anybody can start a show. And I think the reason I started doing this was, you know, one, to share my knowledge, but two, I've been thinking about this for years, and, you know, like, I don't want to be a YouTube sensation and be, you know, have this my primary income, although it would be super cool if it was. But, you know, if I ever end up making any kind of money on this, I do with my commissions, which is great. I'm working on a website. For those of you who are noticing, I'm actually making it so that a person can go to the website and build a quote automatically, like generate a quote based on certain elements of what's required. So I have a price list, obviously, with 3 different levels of painting. Basic, you know, that's just you know, 3 colors minimum, no shading, no extra. Tabletop Plus, which is those 3 colors plus shading and a little bit of highlighting. And then some elite stuff, and that's essentially the level of stuff that I'm going to be doing on these guys. But yeah, but sprayed white on sprues, Twitch guy 1701 turns into purple guys on bases after you're done with them, and that's what I want to see. I want to see progress, and I want to reward that progress, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing and the biggest challenge that I see in the community is people get so disheartened by not having a finished product, and that's not what this is about. It's about, I mean, I'm happy that these guys have faces now, right? I mean, see the progress on these guys and the color scheme, and the, you know, although the entire model is not painted, there's progress on it. There's that reward. I'm happy that this is done. I'm making progress. And the same thing goes with you. As soon as you put your armor on, as soon as you put your shading into your models, you know, things are good. You know, I want to reward that. I want this to be the place for people to come and say, hey, you know, I get to see and show my progress of my models, and yeah, I don't think it's super lots and great, but it really is. And that's the biggest challenge I think people have is not giving themselves enough credit. You know, a lot of people are great painters, and they say, "Oh, you know, how do you paint like that, OJ? How do you paint like that?" Well, it's practice, a lot of practice. And all right, so now what I'm doing is I'm rebuilding this guy's eye, which I shouldn't be doing yet. I'm gonna actually go ahead and put my pupil in here. So I'm just I like having nice thin color to put on here. I don't like, so I'm using Drakenhof Nightshade just to put a little dot in here. So essentially I'm putting a little bit of wash on my palette. All right, so this is what my brush looks like with paint kind of loaded in. All right, I'm gonna try and get as much of that paint off of that brush as possible. So here, let's see what this looks like. So you can't see the glow or the shine of the paint on those bristles. So that means that if I was to just kind of put a dot on my skin here, it's not a pool of paint. See, it's just a little dot. And that's essentially the idea that I'm getting with here. So we're looking this guy straight in the eyes, and I'm coming in with my paint, and I'm just putting a dot in the center of that. Now the idea is I don't need to worry about having it exactly in the center. Okay. It looks pretty bug-eyed, right? And that's okay because it's not finished. Just a little dot. And there's my bug eyes. Googly. All right, let those finish. So people also ask me, well, how do you get all of those details in that fine little place? A lot of new painters will paint like this. Okay, let me kind of get this out here. I'm going to show you. A lot of new painters will paint like this. Notice what's happening. I'm kind of putting my brush on there. Nothing is supporting this hand. So the biggest kind of improvement that I've ever seen people make is as soon as they've anchored their painting hand. When I anchor my painting hand here, I anchor my wrist on my desk. My wrist on my desk is over here, so my arms aren't moving, first and foremost, right? And then I have my left hand holding the model, and I don't have to have my left hand right on the table, but my right hand, I use my pinky and ring finger from that right hand or my painting thing to find an anchor. So essentially, like I'll always use my fingers here, or I'll put like right on the model. With models like Joan of Arc here. So Joan of Arc, I end up using the cork down here as a kind of an anchor point, right? You see my pinky finger? I'm using that as the anchor to get into there. And that anchor point is really key in making sure that your hand stays super steady, right? And I made that comment because, I made some little dots here that are super little dots. And it takes a lot of anchor, find it, bring it in really nice and slow. Right. Make these pupils a little darker. All right. And we'll let that dry again, and we'll move on. All right, so over here, I'm going to kind of work on the jackal here. So I'm going to start piecing out, because the eye that I can't see is so far back there, I'm not going to worry about that eye too much. Kind of get back in there. I'll kind of really lighten that up a little. Yeah, let's get in here. So here we go. So see that eye? It's nice and white back there. It's already white. Now, I can't really see this person's eyes directly in there, right? So I'm gonna try. Get it on the edge. Yeah, that's nice. I'm just gonna keep that eye white there. Can't really get in there really well. Essentially what I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna start picking out, after I've done that eye, start picking out some of the metallics on here. So I'll pick out our goggles. And we're just taking our time with it. Oh, thanks, Ronler. Got a bail. All right, Twitch guy 1701. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks for joining. Next week we'll see some of your models. I'm gonna come up and take a look at what we got here. Ron Lore. All right. So Ron Lore, I just want to make sure. Are you okay with me showing what's going on? I want to bring it up so that people can see. Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're okay with doing that. I think it's pretty great. Looking good. So a lot of this stuff that I'm kind of basing here might end up being like a leather strapping. Put this nice and dark so I can see it. Awesome. Thanks, Ron Lore. Give me a second here. I'm going to pop that up and find a way to show people. Go ahead and just do this here. Add a new scene screen. I know. Sorry, guys. Whoa, no sound. Damn it. I was giving you some nice compliments on there. Yeah, that was a great model, man. A couple of things that I made comments of when I was... Is sound back anyways, by the way? I just want to make sure here. Paint focus. Things are... Yeah, I have my camera. A couple of things that I noted while I was on there. Really like how you're picking out that... really like how you're picking out those that shading and whatnot, right? So your skin tones, seeing the deep skin and the and the highlights come out. I'm really noticing a big difference from when you started, which is really super cool. Also really liking the green and the silver on the actual breastplates and the plating of the armor. Super cool. One thing that I kind of mentioned as a tip, maybe if you're ever interested in doing it, it's not that you have to. I've noticed that you had some speckles of paint on the base still, and I know that you do all of your basing at the end after you've painted everything. I find it really rewarding, and let me show you. I'm working on another commission over here, but I had a model. This guy here, it's a Tau model, and the base itself was primed white, and that's okay, even if you redo it white. But I had a bunch of paint and spatter on the bottom. But I find that even though this model is going to be rebased, what I want to do is I just like clean up the base. So take that white, or take a nice base white, and like clean it up so that those speckles don't show. And it just gives you that sense of accomplishment that model is finished. So in this case here, this is a prototype for one of the commissions that I'm doing, but I feel that the model is ready to go, but I didn't feel right not having that base painted black. So that's just a tip that I have. Cannabis Gardens, welcome to the stream, buddy. How you doing? Are you working on anything this afternoon? Are you doing any building? I'm thinking, are you working on anything? Do I know you? Are you from Sudbury? Are you one of the guys that was hyped for this? All right. R.I.P. No sound. Did I lose anybody? Is everybody gone now? I hope not. I wanted to make sure that you can see that model. I'll fix that up so that I can do it. As I mentioned, I know there's a way for me to be able to, put up a code for people to. I have a virtual live streaming, or a virtual meeting software that I use. It's called Zoom. It's super easy to use, and if you're ever interested in doing it, it's super cool. But what I'll do is I'll put up a code for people to be able to sign in with a camera or anything that they want. Essentially what I'll do is I'll showcase your stuff, whether it's a picture like that up on my page or whatnot. But yeah, like I say, the purpose of this is not for me to just be on stream, helping people, but for us to be able to do this together. And I find that seeing other people's progress throughout that hobby aspect of it, whether it's building or anything, is really important to me, anyways, to make sure that they see what's going on your end. All right, so let's take a look at this guy over here now, and take Mr. Googly Eyes out. Oh, there's Googly Eyes. I know people are like, oh man, my googly eyes, how do I fix that? Well, to fix that, we go around the skin color now again. So I take my Druchii Violet again. All right, and in this case, here we go. I'm just going to come around, and I'm going to come in from the edges. To reshape that eye. better, but as we get in here, it's nice and right. Don't be worried about getting too much shade in there because it's a really deep. It's a really deep part of your face, right? And especially in your sockets there, really close to your nose. You gotta make it look right. So that looks a lot better than googly eyes, right? So now I'm just gonna kind of repurpose that and do the same thing on the other side. So again, just because, I find the easy ways of doing things, I just kind of put them upside down. Because this eye is on the left side of him, but I want to be able to get in there. So Cannabis Gardens, I see that you haven't responded yet, but are you working on something this afternoon, or are you just coming in and saying hi? Take this opportunity to kind of darken up some of the darker areas in here as well. There we go. There we go. So looking at that from back here, looks pretty damn good. I'm happy with that. Shroom Duck, are you happy with this? Are we still back? Am I back? Am I missing audio here? Can I get verification from people that I'm good with audio? Just a thumbs up somewhere. Okay. So let's get into the next colors. So the next layer here is all the armor. You see the armor down in here, back in here, and we want to keep this like the color of the drab olive. So I'm just gonna come in with a nice dark wash on there to keep that olive color. Awesome, thanks, Ronlor. I appreciate that, buddy. I'm gonna take a quick break though here. I'm gonna refill my glass and get some more water. I will be back in 5 minutes, so stick around. Just gonna take that little break and get back here, and we'll get some armor on there. Okay. All right, and we're back. Paul 8881, you have the same t-shirt? Yeah, it's great to see you. Great t-shirt. Thanks, Paul. I was just on a break, so hopefully I didn't miss too many people. Yes, look like Han Solo in your thing there. Awesome. Nice to see you. If you're just joining in, we're here painting some of the new Gene Steeler Cult models. All right, we've got the skin colors and skin tones on most of these guys here. All right, we got the Locusts and the Sanctus and the Jackal Alpha. All right, I'm really not liking how that top piece is there. I have to see what that looks like. I'll have to bring that in with some more metallic. But we're gonna start getting in on this. So as I mentioned, I like starting my painting just like I get my clothes on in the morning, from skin outwards. So here we go. Skin's done on this guy down here. I'm probably gonna fix up those eyes a little bit later, but you know, his left eye looks pretty good, but I'm not liking his right eye a little bit more, so I'm just gonna probably clean that up even more. Still looks googly eye when you look really close like that, so I'll fix it up. So let's do that right now, because we can. All right, so this guy here, you can get that back in, and as I mentioned, don't be afraid to get right in there, right? So he doesn't look googly eye. Same thing's gonna go on the other side here.
Enjoy streaming music free on your mobile.
There. With that though, brought a little bit more dark out here than I wanted. So I'm just gonna re-highlight up here. There we go. A little less googly eyes. Wow. All right, as I mentioned, you know, the next piece is the armor down in here, and we're keeping it the olive drab, so I'm just gonna get that wash going. A lot of people, they swear on, you know, just putting in Newlin oil or Argax Earthshade. Me, I like usually the colors that you're washing with, right? So for me, Anthonian Camo Shade is the green color that I'm going to use to do this. And if I need to highlight, I'll highlight with something a little bit higher. So in this case here, the olive drab is there. So what I think I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the highlights on first and then wash. So I'm using Dead Flesh. Now it's you know, it's like a flesh color, flesh tone for the undead, but it's almost like a green. So so essentially what it's going to do is it's going to be nice and bright when it gets put on, but when I wash with the camo shade, it's going to darken it, right? So it's going to make it come out. And all I'm doing here with these guys is just on the edges. Okay. On the edges of some of these ridges here, putting that in, so you see how that color goes in. I'm gonna do the same down here. Yeah, this is some armor pieces that I want to have a little bit more predominant. Okay, Actually, I'm going to come back up here and do this first. Essentially, I'm just doing the edging. Get the edges of the buttons. The edges of that guy. So the key to doing edge highlighting like this is to make sure your brush is not overloaded. So as we look at my brush here, you know, it's not overloaded. It's just I could tell that it's there. So overloaded will look like this. This means that you are overloaded. If you have something dripping at the end, that's not a good thing. And for most guys, it's probably always not a good thing. But if you're ever dripping at the end like that, with your paintbrush, you're not gonna get the scheme that you want. You're not gonna get the result that you want. So nice dry, almost dry brush, right? I know that the brush itself is holding that paint, but it's nice and dry. Right, just getting into where I want those edges. So again, even with all this armor, just edge highlighting this. In here. And again, the reason I'm doing this up front is because this highlight color, I don't want it this bright. At some point, I might come back in and get just some small pieces and edges like this, but I'm not gonna worry too much about that. All right, there we go. For all my listeners and watchers over on YouTube Live, thanks for joining in. I know you have a couple of them over there. Really stoked about doing this, and I'm hoping that this becomes a regular thing for everyone. Jumping in, working on our hobby stuff together, making progress. There we go. So that's some nice highlights down in there. All right, then I'll flip this guy back over. Get the highlights down in here. So now I'm just gonna run my edges across this guy here like this, just on the outside, because that's where the light will be. Underneath, see how that difference is? I'm just leaving that edge out like that. Same thing goes up here. We want to kind of keep that shadows almost the same as what it would be. My edges of my boots here. See that there's some leather strapping that I will do in brown appropriately later, so I'm not going to worry about that. Even when I'm doing my wash here, I'm not going to worry about that. Alright, so looks like most of my armor is kind of highlighted there. Let's get this back into, there we go, good color, good side, good view. Take a look at it a little bit further, there we go, oh, that's looking good. All right. Okay, so looking at some comments over on YouTube, you can just hear me, just barely hear me, and your volume's on full A for both, like your audio and your computer itself. Let me see if I can just bring up my volume here a bit. There we go, a little bit more volume. Hopefully that picks up a little better. thanks for the point. Rings of Chaos over on our YouTube channel. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna bring both up so that I can see the comments at the same time. Steve Marr, sorry I'm late. It was a sweet model. Yeah, that was probably at that point. I'm hoping, Steve, you're still on. Kind of cool to see you still. Alright, there we go. Get things set up. I can see. Now I can see both channels. Alright, so I'm at the point where I'm going to wash here now. So we'll go back to my number 2 brush again. Number two, and I'm going to go and put in my Anthonian Camo Shade. Awesome, thanks Brandon. Steve Marlowe, yeah, it was the Tau model, I think. No, I think that model that was that we were looking at with the blue skin, that was Rondlor, and he posted on my Facebook page, put up the stuff that he was working on today. So, you know, I know it's always hard for us all to get together on a regular basis in a physical space. And you know, I like seeing and kind of commenting on and rewarding the gains and you know, things that you're working on yourselves as well, because although people think that they don't make a lot of progress on their models, you know, it's actually the opposite. They do make great progress, and you know, that should be rewarded as you're working on things. And I want this channel and this stream to be really focused around that, because that's really my passion with the hobby, right? Is the painting part. And you know, when I'm working with or even just you know, sitting and getting comments at the store, and you know, people saying, "Oh, that's such a great model, OJ," and you know, yeah, I can paint it for you, and you know, you can pay me to do that, but I would much rather see you gain the benefits and the rewards of doing it as well. And if you're doing it yourself, and we're doing it together, I can help you along the way. So instead of you know, thinking that you have to go it on your own, you know, the idea around this channel and this stream is to, you know, join in, chime in, ask a question. You know, we had some great tips earlier from other folks. I know you probably won't want to look at this over again, and Steve and Brandon, who just got in a little bit later. One tip was from Rondlor, and Rondlor said that you know, he purposefully enters tournaments, instead of having my hand go across there all the time. He purposefully enters tournaments with army lists that he doesn't have models painted for, so that and especially if it's a required painting requirement, it forces him to actually get that done. So that's a really great tip and trick for people who want to do things themselves. You know, so that's going to be super cool. And I think that's the approach I'm going to take for local games as well, local tournaments or local events. Is purposefully use models that aren't necessarily part of my competitive list, but you know, can have fun with, and do that. All right, so this up here, I want to fix that up. Okay, so see up here, this is where I kind of just missed a step here, almost. The edge and the ridge line of the armor up here is still purple, and I almost forgot about it. So what I need to do is I need to clean that bad boy up. So I'm going to come back in and just repaint over with my drab olive, which was my primer that I used for this. Now I'm not worried too much right now about the model not being completely dry where I put the wash, because well, it's all right if it blends in, because it's all the same color right now, right? So essentially what I'm going to do is get in under there. Come back in over here. There we go. You see that those highlights are still captured that I got down there, and that wash, that shade now will dry nice and matte. All right, so there we go. So we got that done. I'm going to try and do the same over here. So over here, there's nothing really other than the robes. So I'm going to do the robes like that, but I'm going to keep my armor plating on this guy here, Locust, the same. All right. So I'm going to clean up what I need to for the armor plating. If I got anything on there, so put a little bit more of my olive drab down, just to make sure. That armor plating back in there gets all cleaned up. And as I said and mentioned at the start of the stream, thin coats are prime. So notice here, it's still pretty transparent. That's okay. I'm going to come back to it and put another coat of that on there. The patience on that is the key element to that. So same thing here. Get in under here, get this cleaned up. Let me get that where I need to be. Awesome, there we go. So with Brandon and Steve online, hi YouTube, Tyrone. So Brandon and Steve, who recently joined, what are you guys working on today? Are you guys working on anything? Are you just kind of sitting and relaxing, taking in the scenes, watching the LVO? Speaking of, I was planning on kind of taking a look at it and doing it, but I'm having so much fun just chatting with you guys, working on these models here. There you go. So that's a nice color. I take this purple. I'm gonna shade that back in here. Yes, as I mentioned, I am a paint licker. Bikes! Gene Steeler Colt bikes! Are they actually fun to assemble, or is that, are you being kind of sarcastic there? Alright. Lay down a nice base color on this guy here. So client wants this guy to be nice regal and royal purple, so start with a nice dark purple on that one. Watching LVO today. A bunch of people are coming over today to watch it, and I'm working on Zinch stuff, assembly of Zinch stuff. And have you gotten any of your models from that guy, Brandon? Tons of character, eh? Good. I'm actually really stoked. The model here, like the Alpha Jackal, like the model itself is superb. I love how tiny the bike is. It's like a little dirt bike. I know my sound effects, but yeah, I'm really liking them. So I'm looking forward to seeing them, the remainder of the models that I'm going to be painting. All right, get a nice. All right, so we're going to see a nice kind of difference here. So we're going to put that nice regal purple in where we need to. Now, as I mentioned with the skin, you know, be liberal, put it where you need to. And this is a nice thin coat, but the paint itself is rather opaque, which is nice. So I'm probably not gonna need to put a second coat of this on, but you know, be mindful of where you're putting this right now, because you know this is where we don't want to have any, you know, fudge ups and have to go back over that olive that we just kind of went over again. So it's just a matter of taking our time. And as I mentioned before, the key for me is my support, right? You know, taking a look at my screen here, a little bit back up. I always use my pinky and middle finger or ring finger for support back up in here. Right, so as I get into a nice close area where I need to kind of have a lot more control of my brush, and just use that support, and essentially I use it as that anchor point, and it's nice to be able to get that anchor and that control that I need to, right? And whether that's on the top of the model or, you know, as I'm moving, I put it right onto my other finger itself. As long as I have that anchor, that's all that matters to me. So as I mentioned to people before, I know Ron Lure probably has heard this already, and you know, a couple of the guys that have already left the channel. I know, you know, I've ended up changing my army, so I'm switching from Ynnari, and ended up picking up and started to build Drukhari, which I already have some models for. Which will probably end up being my competitive list, but for some fun, I picked up some orcs. So I'm gonna put and paint together a number of orcs to be able to, you know, have my fill of the greenskins. Looking forward to that. I'm thinking of doing something a little bit different as well for them when I'm painting them. You know, a lot of the time people say, "Oh, I need to do the green skin." I'm just gonna adjust this guy here. I need to do my green skin, and I need to have the skin green. You know, played against I think it was Matt Piercy. Went down to Perry Sound with Clark in the teams tournament for Hellmouth, and he has actually made his orcs have the red skin, which is super cool. And I've been looking online to see how I might want to do it, but I'm thinking that I might go like an albino style orc where I go like almost a Caucasian skin. Almost white, very similar to these guys here, but with a green tinge as opposed to the purple. And I think that's what my plan is going to be. So something that's important as well, especially when you're using brushes that have a very, very short bristle. So in this case here, I have this Klinsky Sable Winsor Newton. They have the miniature series, right? So miniature series isn't for miniatures, so that you don't know. It's actually miniature in that the bristles are shorter. As you notice, the paint on that brush was reaching the ferrule, and the ferrule is the metal piece that keeps the brush in there. When you start getting close to that, when your paints start getting there, it's really important to keep washing your brushes. For the longest time, and me, I've been, as I said, I've been painting for 37 years. It's only been about 10 years now that I've started realizing that sometimes you're not going to get through a whole paint color, right? So I've only got half of this guy done with his purple, and I had to wash my brush. I had to clean my brush out to make sure that the paint wasn't getting up into that ferrule. So it's pretty important. Brandon is picking them up in Berry Bash this month. I'm super excited to get it. I'm going to be making rubric marines later today. Awesome. So they're all done. Do you mind posting pictures on Brush Jockey Studios? I know that you probably have some progress pictures. I'm really stoked to see them. Do you mind doing that? Also, Mr. Marlowe, do you mind maybe taking a snapshot and posting that up on Brush Jockey Studios in the Facebook page? I'll bring it over and share it out. It'd be kind of cool. Hopefully, take a look at those things. I don't think you guys were on when I mentioned it, but ideally at some point I'm gonna want to have you all be able to post live your actual right here there's the border that you see me on, right? I want to be able to see you post live. I want to be seeing what you're doing live on camera. Even if it's just a picture of you doing this to your webcam on your laptop while you're working with me. I want to be able to see what's going on. Super cool. No worries, Steve. I was actually asking if you wouldn't mind posting a pic, take a snapshot with your phone, and post the pic on Brush Jockey Studios Facebook page. I'll share it out and see how that progress is coming on those bikes. Anybody else who's online as well? Paul, I see you're on there. I think Tyrone, you're still kicking around. Wouldn't mind seeing the progress on what you're working on now. Tyrone already shared what he was working on yesterday, which looks pretty sharp. Go through that and bring it up when I go to it, back to it here in a second. Sorry guys, just make sure I'm in frame here with my Magus. Sorry, this isn't a Magus, this is a Locus. Super cool. I'm liking the robes. It's something that I've really found with robes, and especially the purple colors. I do fairly well with the colors and the rich, deep colors here. So this is a nice robe here, and we'll get the robe hood as well. So it's important here as well. Be very careful and take extreme caution around the head that we've done, right? Don't want to mess up and get in on that head that I've already painted so nicely. I think I just overloaded my brush on that guy. So with that, notice how here it looks like I might have put a little bit too much paint, and that's okay. So I just cleaned my brush, essentially just on my palette itself, dabbed off any excess paint, and then went back in to kind of hopefully sop up any of that paint. There we go. Looks like most of it's done. Get back in here. Looks pretty badass, eh? I like these new models. These are great models. Speaking of models, so as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I start painting and playing specific armies because of the models. I started playing War Machine because of Lich Lord Asphyxius, second version of him, where he has all the souls kind of coming out from under him. I decided to start playing War Machine because of that. I've been playing Warhammer 40k and Warhammer for the longest time. I sold all of my Age of Sigmar armies about 8 months ago actually. As I was looking at it, a league started up in town here, and I started playing Age of Sigmar again because of Marathi, the lizard lady with wings. Super beautiful model. Not even done painting her, but super stoked to kind of work on her as I was doing it. But damn, what models do you look at? What models do you like working on? Some of the things that you're most proud of, or the things that a lot of people get into the games for different reasons around lore, or the game itself and things like that. But I want to know what gets you jazzed about the hobby part of it. You're all here hobbying right now with me. Really wouldn't mind knowing what that it looks like. Hey. Let's go take a look at Brush Jockey Studios. Hey, Brush Jockey Studios. What do we have for posts here? Visitor posts. Still got that. Still waiting for it. That's okay. We'll come back to it. So you're a fluffer a fluffer. You're a fluffer for stuff. Yeah. So you're a stickler for the fluff. Yeah, I know a bunch of people as well. As I was mentioning earlier in the stream, again, just a reminder. I'm hoping to have people, come on and chat with me live to talk about that fluff. Because I don't play the game because of fluff. It's actually, third after the gameplay part. I play games because of the models. That's the reason. I love the gameplay as well, especially when I start getting a little bit more competitive with it. I like really looking at the aspects that I have available to me to do well in the game. But the fluff, geez, I couldn't tell you. I know that the spires of Komara are where Dark Eldar, execute their dark deeds. I know that they, screw with genetics and creating things combining technology and human flesh. And they, get into the nastiness of things. But, I couldn't tell you, different wars that they fought in or contributions to different things. I don't know the history. So the idea is I want to be able to learn that. So I'm gonna hopefully have some guest people on and kind of work with that. Cool fluff, Brendan says. Cool fluff theme and neat rules. Yeah. I mean, that's that's your priority. That's what makes you play the games, which is cool. I don't knock it at all. I love the fact that that's why you do it. But for me, it's just not it. All right. So while that purple is drying still, I'm going to start getting some colors on here. I'm going to make this guy's robes a nice orange. So I'm going to start with Averland Sunset, which is a nice base color, nice yellow. Then I'm going to put in some of the, I have an Army Painter Fire Lizard, which is a nice kind of ochre orange almost. And then I'll do a wash with some reds and stuff in there as well. And I'm going to switch back over. I'm going to go over to my number 1 Vallejo. A little bit longer bristles, so I don't have to clean my brush as often. Something else that I mentioned earlier is I use a wet palette. So for those of you who don't know what a wet palette is, it's essentially just a little tray with a sponge underneath, and all of my paints I use. Now this paint right over here is the one that I've put in at the beginning of the stream, which is about 2.5 hours ago now, and the paint is still wet and it's been open and available on my desk. So I'm using this, and I'll be able to close this container. And what's super cool about that is I'm going to come back, in 2 days' time or in a day's time, and that paint will still be ready and available for me to use on the palette. So super cool. So Berry Bash is coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm not going to be attending, but Steve, are you planning on attending Berry Bash? Yeah, that does sound pretty bad when I was saying the fluffer. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, let's get you back in here, nice and close so you can see. So the theme of this particular army is going to be like a yellow, almost like an orange and purple. Yellow and purple, almost like a yellow-orange. So I'm going to put this down here, and then I'm going to come back over. And the reason I'm putting this down first is just to get to make it so that I found that Army Painter paints are super thin. And oftentimes, if I'm not using a base coat of anything, like this here, I often need to put 4 or 5 coats down to get that. And it's frustrating, I get that, I'm touting that you need to have patience while you do this. But at the same time, you want to be able to make progress and not have to come back to that same color more than 2 or 3 times. So Shroomduck, how am I doing on your models so far? Am I fudging them up at all? Are you happy to do that? Happy seeing that? Seeing what I'm seeing? So those who were chimed in, working with me here, I have a question for you. Are you guys good with the time that I've chosen? Saturdays, noon to 3. I'm gonna try and keep it as regular as possible. Every did I say Saturdays? I meant Sundays. Sundays noon till 3. I'm gonna be here as often as I can, and any time that I don't have the capacity to actually physically be live, I will make and do my darndest to have a pre-recorded session on what I'm working on, and so you can kind of, if you're not, if you don't want to talk to someone live and see someone, on stream live, we can. I'll have something at least for you to show you progress that I've been making on models. All right, so you're hoping to this year, but decided to play in the Basement Collective event. Yeah, man, I was crying when you were saying that. yeah, have to keep it kid friendly, but damn, sorry. Didn't know that was the profession you were in there, Steve. As I mentioned a little earlier in the stream, I'm gonna say that a lot. I've already said that a couple times. I decided not to go to the Berry Bash this year as well. So myself, I'm not going. It's not because I don't want to. Just it's just because I pick and choose the tournaments that I participate in, and try and do 1 or 2 out of town tournaments a year. I was gonna do the ETC Teams tournament, but it's on Mother's Day this year. So, that's a definite no-no for me. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to make it to Capital City Bloodbath, which would be super cool. And if I do really well in there, I think I'm going to try and maybe make it to a larger event down in the States. Like maybe, oh shit, I'm off screen, sorry. Whoopsie. Make it to a larger event down in the States. Go down to, SoCal Open or something like that and see if I could get some tickets, which might be cool. And if that's not this year, maybe count my, pinch my pennies and go next year to the LVO or something like that, which might be open, might be cool. And I would like to do as well as I could in an event like that. I would never go down expecting that I would do, place in the top tables or be, top player of whatever. It's kind of foolish. I would actually want to go for the experience more than anything. Being able to go down and, play Warhammer 40K for 3 days straight, in a tournament that has 600 people in it. Something about that's kind of it's kind of exciting. It would be super exciting to do that. Especially if you go down with friends, not going down just by yourself. It'd be super cool. All right, there we go. Oh, I have some back keep. Back and the other arm. Alright, let's do this some more. So, talking about models and things that, reasons why I've started, but haven't really started about my favorite model that I've ever painted. Oh, what's that? 3 dogs? 3 cats? Shroom duck? Uh-oh. Are you not enjoying this? Maybe you shouldn't be watching me paint your models. Favorite model I've ever painted? Wow. Actually, you know what? the favorite model that I've ever painted was back when I first started doing commissions. And I actually converted a model and brought it down to a games day, and ended up making it fairly far into the painting competition part of it. And there was no specific criteria or anything like that with the painting competition. It was, just a bunch of guys saying, this is what I don't like, this is what I do like. And the model itself sits on a friend's showcase right now, because I decided to sell all of my 40K models as I was getting getting divorced through when I had from my first wife. And I sold it to him, and it's a Howling Banshee Exarch that was converted from an old Howling Banshee and the Jane Czar model, and that thinking, that model itself, I converted, and I don't even have a picture of it, but I put so many hours into this. And essentially what it is it's Jane Czar, if you know the pose, like she's kind of jumping, it looks like she's like leaping into something or jumping, and she has her like pointy toes. So I cut that up. It was a pewter model. I cut it up, and I made this really great Exarch jumping over with a different thing, and anyways, my point being is I've sold my favorite model that I've ever painted, and it's probably just because I put so much time and effort into it, and it was for a reason. It was, I was to go down to this painting competition and put that in. So I was pretty disappointed in myself after thinking about it, and after I got into painting again and came back to the hobby. It's one thing that I've always learned was, if you get rid of everything, you're gonna get back into it, right, Clark? I've sold my armies over and over and over again. I've stopped the hobby like 3 times in the past 20 years, and I always come back to it, and it's because the things like this painting, and the camaraderie of the people that I have around me, and the people that are in the community. It's really second to none, and I like doing it, so I always come back. Yeah, I know, right? Just got here and want to watch the LVO. Talk to you later, OJ. Yeah, no worries, Brandon. Have a good one. Enjoy the LVO. He also said we're thinking about going to the LVO. Yeah, that'd be cool. I think I might jump in with some folks, see what we can do. Tyrone, sounds like we should plan a heist. A heist of what? TBMC Kevin! He can't hear you. As you're out, but wanted to throw you a follow. Awesome. Thanks TBMC Kevin. Much appreciated for the follow. Yeah, painting some Gene Stealer coats. Can't hear me, but that's okay. I'm gonna do a thank you so that he can see that I got his message. Yeah, planning the heist of that model. I've considered offering to buy it back from him. I somehow think that he's gonna charge me like double what I charged him. Oh, because he loves it so much as well. he's a collector of 40K models, and I paint for him often and regularly. And the reason I sold him this model is because he just loves collecting models, well painted models, and this is a well painted model. I'm really proud of it, and I think that it did really well. But I might ask him if I could borrow it one day and show him it. Steve, you know who I'm talking about, and the guy in his showcase. It's a blue aqua Howling Banshee Exarch, jumping over. You probably know exactly who I'm talking about. All right, so while that's gonna be drying now, I'm gonna come back over here. Actually, you know what? It looks like it's mostly dry. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place my wash down first and then come back and go over with the Fire Lizard. So my wash itself, I think, is going to be a mix between Reichland Flush Shade, yeah, I'm going to do a little mix of my washing here. So I'm going to do a Reichland Flush Shade and the Carlberg Crimson. And the reason I'm doing the Carlberg Crimson is because I want this to be like an orangish color, right? So Fire Lizard is the color that I'm going with, this ochre orange. So I'm going to try and get a little bit of a red tinge, a little bit more of a red tinge to my Reichland Flush Shade, which is going to be a nice color there. Reichland Flush Shade and some red. Go equal parts. I think that'll be good. Alright, and all I'm doing is just kind of putting it down, letting it pool in the recesses, and getting frame here. And I'm gonna learn, first stream isn't horrible. Get this in here. Let that red really sit into those recesses. The invention of the shade, since Games Workshop started actually, selling it as a as a tool, is a really great addition to most painters' repertoires because, notice I put like a single layer of that base color down, and a lot of people might just stop right here after they've done this wash because look at how well it kind of looks. I mean, it gets into the shades and it gets into the recesses where it needs to be recessed. So, it helps with your shading and whatnot. But I implore you, I encourage you, don't stop there. Because make it pop with some extra stuff. Now, this is great for, basic kind of tabletop plus kind of painting. This will look good. It looks slick. When we look at this model from further back, it's already starting to be, a model that looks like it would do well on the tabletop. It looks like it would be sharp. I need to pick out the metallics in the little phone hand, and the metallics of the Vox caster that he has, and the antenna and stuff. Shades really do a number on models. They're really super good. Are you Tyrone? Yeah, you gonna get me to do your next army? Are you thinking of doing a 40K army or another War Machine army? Or do you want me to paint it with you, Tyrone? Because, the purpose of these things here today on Sundays are to actually, get you to do your own. Right on. Good stuff. I always enjoyed painting the War Machine models. They were spectacular models. Even like back when they were, kind of one-piece jacks that looked like they were kind of sitting and crouching and pooping. but yeah, I really enjoy it. All right, here we go into my purple. So we're letting that wash dry now for that Gene Stealer Cult guy. So notice I didn't actually do any washes yet on this purple as well. And the reason for that is with cloth, I like getting some highlights on there first. For some cloth, especially with the rich and regal ones, you don't want the color change to be so stark from like, a dark color to a light color that it doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like it's an actual like fold in the cape or anything like that. With a lighter color like that orange, that's it's pretty straightforward. That's nice you can easily get that gradient from the red or the deep dark orange to something lighter up top. But for this one here, I have to go from a deep dark purple, and when you shade a regal purple like this, it's gonna get even darker. Right? So I put a little bit of highlights, and it's not super noticeable, but I'm putting a little bit of highlights on there, and I'm making it a little bit lighter. In fact, you know what? I could probably even go lighter than I am. So let's do this here. I have my little bit of highlights, and it's kind of glaring from my lights, but a little bit of highlights, almost like an edge highlight. But what happens here is I kind of just going to put my little lines on my folds. What happens is this gets captured and gets re-shaded after I put my wash on, right? So it doesn't look as stark from that dark recess link right here to my highlights link, which are right here. Okay, and then when it's nice kind of fold like that, I'll kind of just come down all the way, get my edge highlighting. You want them to look good. They will look good. You're actually a really great painter, Tyrone. But I understand, and sometimes you just want to get it done and get it done differently, right? So I'd be happy to talk to you and chat with you about that if you ever do. All right. I thought that I would have a hard time, talking to a camera without a lot of immediate interaction. But I guess I can talk. So that's cool. I'm happy. I'm doing this. So the idea around me doing this is again to kind of get folks to hobby together. I'm also going to be, putting together different videos and stuff as well. And I wanted to start with getting some live stuff done. Just to kind of know, so people know that I'll be here regularly for people to get information, as opposed to, keeping to a schedule for posting videos on YouTube. And that's what I'll probably end up doing at some point, is putting some videos up on YouTube. Questions like, how do I get started with an airbrush, right? Well, I just ordered a new airbrush. I ordered the Patriot 105 Ultimate. So it's very similar to the Patriot 105, but it's got a individual valve. So let me show you what this looks like here. This is my Patriot 105. All right, Patriot 105, gravity fed. So essentially, paint goes in here, spray goes out there. Need to make sure that the paint is enough thin in there. But the Patriot 105 Ultimate has a little air valve regulator at the bottom down over here. So I get to control my my actual airflow right from the gun itself, as opposed to, you know, doing it on my compressor. It gives a little bit more control over. Gives a little bit more control over the flow of my my paint, and allows me to kind of do that well. All right, so there we go. So this guy is kind of highlighted, and it's not as I mentioned, it's not like super gradient. It's like, you know, just the edge highlights. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and put that that wash on that guy. So we're gonna go with the Drucci Violet. And I want it to be a little bit more dark and more regal. So instead of just taking that Drucci Violet, because the regal purple that's underneath is probably going to be darker, I'm going to mix it with this guy here, Drakenhof Nightshade. So essentially, I've got my two colors, and I'm going to mix on my palette over here. All right. And then I'm just gonna start laying down that wash. Get it in. And you see what happens here is the dark parts get into the recess, and those lighted parts, or those highlighted parts, it's hard to see with the glare, they get kind of pulled into that shade and reshadowed or recolored, right? So it's not as stark of a highlight for it, which is super cool. So this is meant to be a tips and tricks place as well. Must be small not to hamper me. What do you mean? What do you mean, Steve? Like my compressor? As I'm washing here, I want to make sure I don't hit it on the hands. There we go, some nice deep. I like how that's gonna look. Oh, the regulator on the gun. Yeah, it's like a little wee dial right underneath that that nozzle. Super small. I got it on Badger's 55th birthday, actually. Every year when they on their birthday, they send out an announcement to people saying, we're gonna give you airbrushes at $55. So this brush itself is, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $230 retail or $200 retail. And Badger offered it for $55 this year. So obviously I just needed to wait for the whole rush of other people getting the brush as well, or the different models. But yeah, I got my brush for $55. But yeah, as I was mentioning, this is a place for tips and tricks. So what are your pressing questions? You know, coming to about 10 minutes left. I want to be able to answer the questions that you have about hobbying, or, you know, the hobby in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, 40K related. It doesn't have to be painting related. If you have questions about, you know, gameplay, competitive nature, how do you, you know, I want to be able to address that. And if it needs me bringing in, you know, pros or people who know about it, I will. I've already scheduled someone being in next week to talk about the lore and the history of the Gene Stealer cults. So that's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to that. You know, it's going to be a spot where I paint and kind of go through exactly what I was doing here, but I'm chatting with someone live, taking breaks to show what I'm doing on the actual stream itself with painting, and then showing and talking about, you know, the lore of these guys here, and how they came to be, and where they are now, and why they're like the way they are, and how they're, you know, worshiping a god that's going to come and eat them at some point. You know, so that's kind of neat and cool. But if you're ever in question, or you have something that you want me to cover on the stream, either, you know, reach out to me in a personal message on any of my methods of communication. You know, drop a line on my Facebook page, put a message in the videos that I have, you know, whatever it is. Ask the question, and if you want me to cover it on the stream, I'll be happy to do so. I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm looking forward to keeping this a regular tradition. You know, we had a few people jump on, which was super cool. I like chatting with people. Next week, I'm gonna hopefully have capacity for you to share your models, other than just on the site, which reminds me is something that I'm gonna do before I sign off here. I'm gonna go over to our Facebook page, and we're gonna find more models posted, because I'm sure other people did. No one else did. All right, that's okay. Go ahead and post up your stuff over there. I'm looking for that. But yeah, let's keep this going, and make sure that we enjoy doing this. I'm going to put up a poll also, just what you would prefer to see me on, whether it be on Twitch or on YouTube, or both, you know, because I like giving you guys the options here as well. Tip for the airbrush. What did I tip on? Oh, on what airbrush to use. Yeah, I mean, it's a good tool. You can do the same thing with the regulator, Steve, on the actual compressor itself if you have one. But if you don't have a regulator on your compressor, that regulator will definitely help out with the flow of air, which is super cool. Awesome. And I'm gonna start finishing up with the orange color on this guy. See that red really kind of started and kept in there, which is super nice. I'm very stoked about that. So what I'm gonna do now is, instead of just discarding that same color base coat that I'm gonna use, I'm actually just gonna pop this orange down beside. Okay, so you see, I would just pop that orange, and I really don't like how these army painters look, but that's okay. Essentially what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna mix that in. Okay, and that now is the color that I'm going to use to highlight this guy. Awesome, thanks Steve, thanks Tyrone for the big thanks. Hopefully we'll see you next week. I'm looking forward to doing this on a regular basis. This is gonna be super cool. So yeah, good stuff. Highlight looks super cool. What's nice about it though, because it's so transparent, is that it doesn't transition super stark, right? So those highlights look a little bit more natural, which is nice. I'm really happy with that. All right. And this is pretty much it. This is going to be the last color that I'm going to get down before I sign off. Go over and check out, see how LVO is doing, where people are. There we go. Looks pretty sharp. Yeah, I'm liking that. Awesome, guys. So, I'm going to take this time to thank you again for signing in to Brush Jockey Studios. I am your Brush Jockey, OJ. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. I'll keep everybody posted with my schedule. It's every Sunday, noon to 3. Post a little bit of a poll to see if that works. Make sure everything's good with that, and other things that we might want to cover. Okay, so here's your Brush Jockey signing out. Thank you so much. Have yourself a great rest of your Sunday.